field for the end zone. Moore, touchdown.
With time, throws it short. Foreman with the catch. Foreman to the end zone for the touchdown. Warriors' long pass of the day is 15 yards, and it's intercepted. Picked off by Jalen Johnson. Johnson untouched for the touchdown.
What's up, Bears fans? Welcome into the Willis Twin Towers podcast. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Tim Willis, and my partner in crime over here, my twin brother, Jeff. Jeff, say hello to the crowd.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We're going to have a pretty special guest for you guys in a little bit. We'll get to in here in about 10 minutes or so. Just want to let you guys know, give us a like on the video here, follow Barroom Network. Give us a subscription here to the channel, and also give us a follow on Twitter, guys. We got some good stuff on there for you. I'm at JAW0235. Tim is at TimWillis24. Like I said, we've got pretty good content we've got on there, guys. During the games, we're saying stuff usually, and also we post some pretty good stuff about like some hits and whatnot. We were talking about last week the Willis's Wallops we want to get into. And I'll talk about that later in the show, but we do have some pretty good reposts that at least I do anyways, that I've got from some people that have shown some good stuff over the course of the last week or so. But why don't you get into some stuff here, Tim, and let them know what's going on here today.
Well, I'm excited about our guest tonight. I'll introduce him here shortly, or excuse me, Jeff will introduce him here shortly. But as you guys may know, I'm wearing my Notre Dame hat tonight. Jeff and I were born and raised in South Bend, spent the majority of our childhood lives in Mishawaka, which is just outside of South Bend. We grew up within a couple of miles from Notre Dame Stadium. We bleed blue and gold. And so tonight's guest is a huge Notre Dame guy. You'll find out soon. I don't want to give away too much, but I will tell you that he is the beat writer for the South Bend Tribune for Notre Dame football. And I'm really excited to have him on. It's been a really trying year for Notre Dame. There were really high expectations. And after the Ohio State debacle and some other things, it just hasn't panned out to what the expectations were. But to top that off, there's some very interesting prospects coming out of Notre Dame that'll be entering the draft. And we want to ask some questions to him pertaining to that and seeing maybe if the Bears would be looking at some of those guys. I know that Ryan Poles and staff have been to several Notre Dame games already this year and done some scouting. So it's interesting to see if they're possibly looking at some of those guys in April here. Maybe we'll see a Notre Dame player drafted by our own Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure some of you guys are Notre Dame fans anyways, and you're all mostly college football fans, I'm sure. But you're all Bears fans, so I'm sure you're going to have some curiosity as to whether some of these guys that are on Notre Dame's roster right now and are going to be entering the draft could possibly be fits for the Bears as far as both their physical profile and as far as production and need and all those things. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this show from a number of standpoints. But after we get done with our guest, we're also going to dive into Bears-Lions because I'm sure you guys are going to want to know how we feel about that upcoming matchup and whether or not our beloved Bears stand a chance in that one. So what do you – first of all, Tim, let's just kind of get going a little bit on that real quick before Mike comes in because I want to know your thoughts on what first of all, what Dan Campbell has said in the past couple of days in his pressers regarding – the Bears and how he feels they perform and how hard they fight. And also, do you think we're going to stand a chance in this game? Do you think we're going to do enough or potentially are going to perform well enough to stand a chance and make this a close game?
Well, I kind of lean two ways here. To go on the Dan Campbell point, I'll just say that based on his comments, I think he views the Bears in a very similar situation to where he was his first couple of years in Detroit. Tough, gritty, hard-nosed football team. They like to pound the rock, which we need to see more of that this year. But tough-nosed guys that don't give up, that fight through games. And that's very similar to how he built that roster or built that team in Detroit. And I think he sees a lot of similarity there. They start, like everybody keeps pointing out this year, including the coaching staff for the Bears, that the Lions started off 1-6 last year, and they closed the year out really well. And I almost kind of feel that same similar vibe in Chicago. Now, granted, I wouldn't put our team up against that team last year. I feel like Detroit's team was much better than we are at this point this year. But on Sunday, if you're asking me if I was not a Bears fan, my first thought would be the Bears are going to get killed. It's not going to be a close game. There's just too much on offense in Detroit. There's not enough. We're not going to be able to put up enough on their defense. But there's a couple things that go with that. So to me, there's a few things in the Bears' favor. So number one, Justin Fields is back. And if you're not going to tell me for 1 minute that he is not going to play with a massive chip on his shoulder, he's been sitting out for 4 games. People are talking about how there was everybody's talked about the quarterback controversy early on. I think he wants to shut up that narrative quick. I just think he's going to come out there and ball.
Before you go on, Tim, I want to mention this comment that Torian just put up, because I've been screaming this since day one. I mean, it's bedrock of football. Limit the penalties and turnovers. You give yourself a chance. Yes. And that's not always the case with some teams because you're just so overmatched talent-wise, which, I mean, if you look at it right now, yes, on talent-wise on paper, of course, and even by records, the Lions are better. But the Bears have enough talent, in my opinion, to where if they limit those penalties and turnovers, and if they would get some turnovers on defense, it'd be nice, which we preach about it all the time. And, it's pretty rare that we actually have that happen. But when we do, we have good success with it. So if they do those things and they do, have some pretty good execution on offense and they continue to play well on defense, which they have. But the problem is they really are going to have to stop these guys, the run game especially, because I don't remember who it was. I was hearing about it from, I believe it was Matt Bowen was on 670 or something, if I'm not mistaken, was talking about he believes if the Lions could, they would run the ball every single time and just go play action based off of that when they can every once in a while and get it down the field, which I wish the Bears would do that, because you know what? We have a pretty good run game, a really good offensive line in the run game, and a stable of backs who can run football. Not to mention a quarterback who is arguably he's definitely one of the best running quarterbacks, if not the best running quarterback in the league, outside of Lamar Jackson. So the way I look at it, if they would do that a little bit more, if they would commit to the run game, if they would work the play action based off of that and get the ball down the field, they will stand a chance, because they need some explosive plays, in my opinion, outside of just, limiting the turnovers and the penalties and all that. That will give you a chance. But if you actually want to win, in my opinion, they're going to have some explosive plays in this game, whether it be like a big run from Fields, a downfield pass or two that go for touchdowns, maybe a kick return for a touchdown or a punt return for a touchdown, which is doubtful, but possible always. So, those kinds of things, I think if any of that happens, they're going to stand a chance for sure. But if they want to win, they're going to have to get one of those explosive plays, at least one of those explosive plays, probably a handful of them.
I agree. I think some things are definitely going to have to go their way. But I think our guests should be getting ready to come on. I do want to continue this. I've got some more points that I want to make about this game and my feelings and thoughts for it. But our guest should be arriving shortly if he's not on right now. So, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest?
He's not here yet, so don't worry about it right now. But I want to ask you guys real quick, just to kind of get off, because we're going to get back to Bears Lions in a little bit here. I want to ask you guys something in the chat. Those of you can see me. Those who are listening on the podcast, you're not going to see this, obviously, but we'll talk about it afterwards. Anybody who can see my shirt right now, the first person in the chat who can guess who these guys are, who this is, I'll give you a shout out right now, obviously on the show for saying it. But
can I say it?
Looking at who is at the bottom, if you can see who these people are and you can guess it, I'll give you a shout out.
Can I do it?
No, Tim, you're obviously not allowed. Wow, I got nothing from nobody here yet.
Can they really see it?
You guys don't know. You got to be able to. Can you guys see?
I mean, I can see it.
You see the faces at least? For anybody listening, on my shirt, I've got 3 guys. One in the middle is blonde, and they're all wearing sunglasses. And it's a popular band from the 80s and probably late 70s. It's not Duran Duran, Cliff. Not even close. Not even close.
I like
buddy.
Duran Duran. Don't hate on Duran Duran.
Well, since nobody can figure it out, I'm just going to let Tim go ahead and guess. No, it's not Doris Joe, but that's getting closer. A lot closer. It's a 3-piece band, guys. It's not David Bowie or Mick Jagger, Kevin. Go ahead, Tim. Tell them who it is.
I'm pretty certain it's the Police.
It is the Police. I cannot believe you guys couldn't figure that out. It's Sting right in the middle there. Stuart Copeland, one of the most explosive drummers of all time. I can't believe you guys don't know who these guys are. That's baffling to me. But anyways.
There's a few guys probably that remember the Police in the chat, but probably some younger guys too. Not even really sure who the Police are. Definitely don't know who Stuart Copeland is, Jeff. Most of them probably don't. Yeah. They may know the name.
See the faces. I'm sorry. Well, I didn't want you guys to see all of it because at the very bottom here it actually says the Police. So I didn't want to give that part away. So sorry, Cliff. Oh, great song. It's probably my favorite one. Roxanne.
Hey, Cliff mentioned Roxanne, and it's funny. I'm going to tell a funny story. So some of you guys may not know this, but I coach high school wrestling.
Hey, Tim, we got to get into this here. We'll talk about it later. Let me introduce our guest here, guys, real quick. So as Tim said, he's the beat writer for the South Bend Tribune. He's with USA Today also. He's the co-host of the Pot of Gold. He's also a voter on the AP Top 25, and he obviously covers Notre Dame. This is Mike Berardino. Welcome in, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Hey guys, how are you? I would like to hear that story that I got. What's the Roxanne story?
So I'm the head coach at a high school here locally, West Vigo High School, and we have this wrestling drill that we play the song Roxanne to, and all it is every time they say Roxanne, they have to take a shot, and every time he says put on the red light, they have to sprawl. And you want to see a bunch of tired wrestlers by the end of a song, it wears them down completely. But it's a really great drill, and it keeps them in their stance and things. If you know anything about wrestling, it's great for that.
Well, I do know that I had the Police's greatest hits in my car as I was driving around today, and I just heard Roxanne a little while ago. So that's timeless. And that seems like a best and worst of all worlds that you got there. Whatever you're doing there with the refrain. So I know more about pro wrestling, probably historic old time pro wrestling than actual legit wrestling.
Yeah. So Mike, I want to open up with a question for you. It's kind of a flux situation. I've listened to your Pot of Gold podcast, and I know nobody's really certain what direction they're going to go. But in your opinion, do you think that they're going to anoint the next quarterback as somebody that's on the roster, maybe Angeli, Minchie, or do you think it's going to be Carr next year? Or do you think they're really going to hit the portal and try to find someone for that there?
Your guess is as good as mine right now. I mean, those are all potential options. Kind of depends on the quality of the pull that they can get from the transfer portal this time. At this time last year, there were a handful of names floating around, and Sam Hartman really wouldn't come to the fore until about the third week of December, I believe. During the Gasparilla Bowl, it kind of went public, and but then it kind of got tamped down for a week or so, but it was going to happen. The fact that CJ Carr's going to show up here in South Bend in the middle of December as opposed to the middle of January is not just a wise move for his short term, but for his ability to get a leg up on whoever they bring in, because that will not be the case for the transfer portal guy. We'd just be throwing names out there right now. I haven't been, we have really no reason to believe until we see where some of the coaching carousel takes us, what will happen with the quarterback carousel when you consider that some of the potential prizes are, guys like Michael Pratt or Riley Leonard, but it's way too early.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like with everything that happened with Hartman this year, we all kind of felt like it was going to go really well, especially from the start of the year, the way everything was looking early on, and then things kind of didn't go our way later on, you know. So it kind of makes me wonder whether or not they'll actually go that route again, or if they'll actually just kind of ride it out with a guy like Angeli. Just we're kind of curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've written about. We had Tom Lemming on a couple weeks ago on the Pot of Gold, and his point was that he pretty much felt his prognostication was no matter who they bring in for a transfer quarterback, that could cost them. He said it almost could guarantee it would cost them one of those guys in house because we're in the era of people reading tea leaves and not wanting to stick around, waiting even 1 year for a potential guarantee. Like that's why Tyler Buckner got out of town and went down to Alabama, and it hasn't worked out for him in the short term. But the job in 24 might have been his if he had just hung around and held the clipboard and learned under Hartman. Angeli has not really played any meaningful snaps so far, but in mop-up duty has shown the ability at least to stay out of trouble and dump it down to those receivers. He's the check down guy so far. I'd like to see him try to throw some balls into some tighter windows. But how much would we really learn even if Angeli plays a quarter or a half against Wake Forest or Stanford? I'm with you. I'd like to see, and Kenny Minchie, the reports on him out of USC week, as I wrote about when he was impersonating Caleb Williams for the scout team, the raves were so great that I'm not saying he's the next Caleb Williams, but he at least did a reasonable impression of him in terms of mobility, the arm talent that even some of his teammates were talking about, who had to defend him on those extended plays that Caleb at his best can give you. And of course, we saw how the game went. So Kenny Minchie prepared his teammates and the defensive coaching staff for what lay ahead. But what can you read into that? When Marcus Freeman talks about wanting to have 4 quarterbacks on scholarship again for next year, when Sam Hartman is subtracted from the mix and Carr is added, there are no guarantees that Minchie or Angeli would still be here in the spring.
So that brings me to a question as far as recruiting goes. So when Brian Kelly was in South Bend, I don't want to say that he didn't emphasize recruiting, because I believe he did, but as far as he didn't go to the lengths that Marcus Freeman goes to go get these kids on his own. Like, he's really invested in getting these kids himself. He goes on the visits, very, very invested in it. He's willing to travel anywhere to get these kids. So my question is, the last championship Notre Dame won was in 1988. Jeff and I didn't even get to see that. We were born in 89. So we have not seen that
in your lifetime. Not a thing. Yes.
Right. So my question is, with how he's willing to do the recruiting, and we're really starting to see the fruits of that labor. Like, there's some very, very talented kids on this roster that are just going to keep getting better. Benjamin Morrison's a big one that comes to mind for me, and is only 19 years old. So my question would be, do you think that with the way that Marcus is recruiting right now, do you think he could be the guy to get us over the top? Or do you think he's maybe still too young of a coach to really know for sure what he's able to do in the future?
Well, you make a good point about his recruiting energy and the word he uses for his, not just himself, but his whole staff, relentless. He said that he wanted a complete staff of relentless recruiters, and they have been in the mix for more of the 5-star types, even though Jalen Sneed so far is the only 5-star they've landed. I mean, CJ Carr may end up being a 5-star. And then the development piece of it, Benjamin Morrison, when he came in, was not supposed to be Benjamin Morrison. I mean, that he didn't even get here until June of 22. And then, just kept getting better and better, because Mike Mickens is really good at coaching cornerbacks, and he's the defensive pass game coordinator and probably a defensive coordinator in waiting, should Al Golden go back to the NFL at some point as a coordinator or go run another program as he's done elsewhere. But, the key is that you're in those conversations. Marcus Freeman said he would be the lead recruiter on everybody. He would not be the closer, which was the traditional way for a head coach to do these things, and maybe the way Brian Kelly preferred to do these. But Marcus Freeman's often the one who's staying in touch with these guys post game, checking, the quick text that a head coach could easily shunt off to somebody else. He's all world at that, and creating these relationships. Doesn't mean that you get everybody to the finish line. They had a number of guys decommit who would have been potential program changing pieces, like Keelan Keeley a year ago and Peyton Bowen at the last minute with all that drama. And even this year, there've been a couple of guys who would have been nice to keep in the group who got away, but that's just kind of recruiting in the NIL era. And of course, the transfer portal being a tighter window now, but still opening up on December 4th, there'll be some movement that could freak out some of the guys out there who might already be verbally committed somewhere else, might be verbally committed here. It's important to always let people know that those are I
think we lost you for a second there, Mike.
of my own who are in their 20s. Like, I know. Sorry, you see me now? All right.
Yeah,
I was just letting you know that a non-binding is the part that we leave out, and then the fan base gets angry when these guys quote unquote decommit. I mean, it's just kind of you kind of have to have an idea along the way, but it's the player's prerogative, the young student athlete's prerogative, especially at age 17, to keep looking around, and they tend to do that right up until early signing date.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I wanted to kind of ask something that's a little off topic. I mean, it is kind of in relation to Brian Kelly. Notre Dame Stadium forever was natural grass, as you know. And when Brian Kelly got here, I feel like one of the first things he did was move to the field turf. And with all the players lately, with the injuries and the complaints that they've had with turf and wanting to play on grass, do you think Notre Dame at some point goes back to grass?
Well, they just put in a new layer of turf about a year ago. And so they're on their second set of field turf. And I hear you. There's a lot of pushback around the NFL, and even some of the guys, they practice on field turf here as well. They do have access to one grass field, but 3 of the practice fields, including the indoor, are the fake stuff. But to this point, because of what can happen, we've been kind of lucky so far with this weather. But you just think back to last year's senior day with the snow game. If that had been any snow or severe rain on freezing rain or something on grass, then you go back to you're at the mercy of the mud, and that can be fun to watch. But it's certainly no better for competitive outcome or maybe even safety. I don't know. I have asked a number of Eli Raridan's blown out his knee a couple of times, but once was basketball and once was unpracticed, non-contact injury. And he's one who said he'd rather play on grass. He believes from his research, and his grandfather is a former strength coach for the national champion team in '88. From his belief, grass would be better for those, especially those non-contact injuries. But obviously, there's a cost component, and this thing has been in place, I believe, since 2014, and no indication that they're going to pull it out.
Okay. Well, Mike, I know you need to get out of here soon, but I did want to ask you, this is kind of a little off subject, but like I said, Jeff and I are from South Bend. We were born there, and we were raised in Mishawaka. Nice. So just random question. What is your favorite pizza place in the South Bend, Michiana area?
That's a good question. I'm not a Barnaby's guy. It's okay. I know a lot of people swear by that.
Me neither. I'm with you, Mike.
Yeah. And I'm not going to turn it down. We've had that for a few of our staff meetings. I like Rocco's for dine in. I probably still haven't had it. I've only been here since 2018. You guys, I should be taking advice from you guys. I have thought, I believe they changed their name, but I've had a good experience with it was Bourbon Street Pizza. And then they changed the name. But they did a nice job. And of course, just from the chain aspect or regional chain, which I shouldn't be pointing out here, but Jets does a good job with their Detroit style pizza. But you tell me, what am I missing? I know I'm missing some.
I
good
would
ones.
say-
My first thought would be Starlight Pizza.
Never had
I was gonna
Starlight.
say,
Gotta have
Starlight's
to do that.
You got to get it, Mike. So
Gotta get Starlight.
me personally, if I had to pick 2 pizza places in South Bend that I had to go to, Starlight would be number 1, and number 2 would be if you're ever in Roseland area. It's a chain pizza restaurant, like you said, a local chain, but Pizza King in Roseland is delicious.
Wow.
So if you ever have a chance, I would check those 2 places out because they're very, very, very good. They're both your classic. They're not like thick crust. They're what's the word I'm looking for right now? It's
square cut thin.
Kind of like New York style, or
They're square cut. Yeah, but they're thin.
Yeah, they're very, very good. It's definitely something to look into. Yeah.
All right. Well, Starlight's been on my. I drive by it often down on the south side of town near Ireland Road. But,
Ireland, yeah.
And I have not stopped in, but I'm going to have to.
It's a good one.
Thank you. And
So
Pizza King too.
I have Bruno's. I would recommend Bruno's as well.
I have had
Bruno's
Bruno's.
good.
Yep, that's a good call. That's a good call. There's no shortage of them. We're blessed. We're blessed here. That's a whole podcast in itself, isn't it?
Pizza podcast. Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Well, I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for joining us. We know we got to let you go, but we appreciate your time and we look forward to guys. Check out Mike's podcast, Pot of Gold. And also follow him on Twitter and X at Mike Berardino, Berardino.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate you. So, yeah, good stuff from Mike there. Wanted to ask him a question about the draft, but I'm going to go ahead and let you dig into that really quick, Jeff. So there's some players from Notre Dame that I think would be good fits for Chicago in the draft. Some of them could be some late round hits. And as we've seen from Ryan Poles, he drafts more on physical traits than he does production, I feel like, more times than not. And there's a few at Notre Dame that really stick out. And we kind of saw that when they picked up Khalid Kareem off of when Indianapolis cut him. He was a guy from Notre Dame who didn't necessarily have a ton of production, but the traits just jumped at you on screen. You could see it, especially when you watch tape. He was really good in the run game, and man, he could just get after the passer, but it just didn't come into it. There just wasn't a ton of production even at Notre Dame, but you could see the physical traits, and they did mention those things when they picked him up off of waivers there. But there's a few guys that stand out. Obviously, I really would love to see Joe Alt come to Notre Dame, but Kevin
Williams in the chat wants to see Joe Alt come to the Bears too. So
yes.
I'll get into that in a second here, but go ahead, Tim.
But I was just going to say, I mean, I don't think they're going to go that way. I think they do think Braxton's the guy. Braxton has a lot of those, again, physical traits that they talked about. Freakishly long arms. He's super athletic. He could use some strength. He needs to build strength still, but the bull rush, he's better against that than he was last year. There are some things he needs to improve, but there are a lot of really good physical traits there. And you're talking about a guy that came from the low FCS level, and he just the traits stood out, and they saw that, and they drafted him for that. And I really think that they're hoping he can be the guy because, for one, they drafted in the 5th round. They're not allocating a lot of money towards him. And if you can get your left tackle locked up for the next 4 years without having to pay him big money, why wouldn't you do that? So, but to go along or to keep going from that, running back is another one that I think could be a very real possibility. The Bears have a really great running back room right now, but it's one of those things where, you're talking Herbert's got one more year. And I'm not sure that he gets re-signed. I just don't think that Poles likes to re-sign running backs, and it's not just Poles; it's GMs across the NFL don't really like to re-sign running backs because their lifespan is so short, and it's easy to draft a guy in the late rounds that can be just as productive, if not more productive. And I don't know if you guys have watched Notre Dame football much, but Audric Estime is the best running back in college football. He is just a monster.
I knew that's where you were going to go with this. So let me counter what you were going to say, Tim. So the first thing I want to say, I'll get to the offensive line thing in a second, but I'm going to disagree with you on that point because I do agree with you that Audric Estime is probably the best running back in the draft. That being said, first of all, he's probably going to go in the second round. The Bears don't even have a second-round pick right now, and I severely doubt they're going to use a second-round pick on a running back. I just don't see that happening, especially with all the needs that they have. Now, going back to the offensive line portion. Number one, I believe I've turned you into the Braxton Jones train to where Joe Alt's probably not going to happen. And the reason for that, look, guys, I love Joe Alt as much as the next guy. In my personal opinion, at this very point in time, if I was an evaluator and I had to choose between Alt or Fasanu, it would probably be Alt. And the reason I would pick Alt is because he might not have quite the upside that Fasanu has, because Fasanu has like elite upside, but he's got he's right there. He could be one of the top tackles in the league. He has his technique is flawless. He has unbelievable balance. He's just the kind, you just know watching him and the way he plays that he's going to be great. And I'm talking about Alt, of course. So look, guys, I love the kid and I think he's going to be a great player in the league. I just hope he doesn't go to a division rival. I just don't see the Bears going that way for two major reasons. The first one is obviously Braxton Jones and the way he's played. And there was a couple of pass block snaps in that last game that were just ridiculous. The way he is improved and the way he's able to do things. It's like a 5th round pick. On just seeing this happen is it's really nice. I mean, because it's a guy you're getting on a cheap contract. You're not paying your cornerstone left tackle yet. He's on a rookie deal still. And you got other needs on your team. So if you got a top pick and a top 5 pick, which is, Alt's going to go top 10 for sure. And so is Fasanu. They could go for top 5. If that's the case, it's not going to happen with either of those guys. And the Bears have like I said, they have so many other needs to where it's at this point, there's a very good possibility they could go quarterback. We hope that the case is that Justin improves enough and shows enough to where that's not the case, because like I said, they have so many other needs still. And one of them's on the defensive line. They still have a need at edge. You can make an argument that they still have a need for a 3 tech, and that's where I want to go into with Notre Dame. So there are a couple of prospects that Notre Dame has that I like for the Bears. And one of them is somebody I want to ask Greg about at some point when there's a Greg Gabriel Talks Football episode, because there's a guy at Notre Dame who is a defensive lineman, defensive tackle named Howard Cross. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but this dude, I don't know. The problem is I'm not sure if he's exactly what the Bears would look for as far as physically I don't know if he's got the length or the athletic profile. I'm not sure. He probably does, but the motor this dude's play, the motor he plays with, the production, and you just see on tape that you just get this feeling he's going to be a monster at the next level. He's going to put it together and be a really good player, I feel like. And I just wondered, I'm curious to where Greg sees him as an evaluator as far as round wise, and if he would be a fit for this Bears defense as a 3 tech, because I do like him a lot. Howard Cross, anyways.
Yeah, I do too. I do. There's honestly a lot of guys on that current roster that I really like, that I think would be good NFL players for sure. More so than I would say in the past over the last 20. Notre Dame always has high draft picks. They always have a lot of guys go in the draft. It's a good program over the years. That they've definitely got a reputation. There's a kid coming up in that'll probably be in next year's class, Benjamin Morrison. He's a corner. I think he's going to go in the first round. He's unbelievable. He completely erased Marvin Harrison Jr. in the Ohio State game. Just a physical, really, really good corner. Has the length, has good size, good ball skills. He's going to be outstanding, and that would be one I would love to see Chicago grab next year. But I also want to mention, I don't see him coming to Chicago because we don't really have a need at linebacker. But I also could see him moving to safety. And that's J.D. Bertrand. I don't know if Jeff, if you view him the same kind of way, but he reminds me a lot of Harrison Smith, a lot. And for those of you who may not know, Harrison Smith played linebacker at Notre Dame up until I believe it was his senior year, maybe his junior year.
Does he have length like Smith, though? I'm not sure he's got that kind of length.
He may not have quite the length of Harrison Smith, but he's got very, very good ball skills, and he is just on it. I think he'd be a really great linebacker in the NFL. He actually reminds me more of, who was the guy that went to the Chargers and played there for a long time at linebacker? He played Rover at Notre Dame just a few years back. He's from Fort Wayne.
Gilman? No, not
no.
Gilman. Why can't I think of this right now?
I know. It's bothering me too. Good linebacker. He reminds me of Bertrand. Reminds me a lot of him too. But that's a guy I could see him getting drafted and having a really great NFL career because he is very good on the ball. So we'll see. I'm not sure. I don't see a whole lot of guys that I see Chicago maybe coveting in this draft as far as Notre Dame players. But I do think Alt has to be at least on their radar, a guy they're looking at.
I'm sure they're watching him and Fasanu both. They've got to be watching.
Agreed. I think they probably are looking at Howard Cross too, because of we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of guys that have a lot of athletic traits at Notre Dame, and that defense has been very, very, very good. It's one of the best in the country. So who knows?
Well, real quick before we get on to Bears Lions, there's a couple mentions here in the chat going back to Estime, and I will make a point about him real quick before we get on this. Aldo makes a mention here about him saying that if Estime is available on day 3, and some think he might be, I'm grabbing him because he's the next best. First of all, that comp is excellent, not from a physical perspective, because I mean Bettis was massive and Estime is like chiseled and he's big, but he's not like Bettis was. He's not like a bust like his the nickname implied. He's just he is strong. He's an ox. And you look at him, like I said, he's chiseled. But the way they run is very, very similar. They just run through people. I mean, you cannot bring this guy down. So
a lot of people underestimate his speed because he doesn't look fast, but he has breakaway speed. When he gets in the open field, nobody catches him.
But what I was going to say look, I mean, if he's available on day 3, which is, he'd have to be a round 4 or later, which to me, I would be very, very surprised if he falls below the second round. If he goes to round 3, maybe, but I mean, if he goes day 3, that would shock me. But yes, I'm with you, Aldo. If he's there on day 3, I'd take him in a heartbeat because this is your guy now. I mean, to me, he'd take over because he's good in the pass game too. And in my opinion, he was both underutilized and not utilized as well as he could have been at Notre Dame. They could have used him more. And there was in particular, the game against USC, Ohio State, Notre Dame should have won that game. And in the last drive, they took Estime out, which is unbelievable to me. They should have chewed the clock with him. He's dominating all night.
He would have scored.
So
he would have scored.
Yeah, he probably would have scored. So, but that's not here nor there. That's a different day and thing. But I agree with you guys. If Estime was around on day 3, I would take him. Absolutely. But to get to Bears Lions, which is kind of what we really should be talking about anyways right now with this big game coming up. Look, at the end of the day, it's like we were kind of talking about earlier. Yes, you got to limit the penalties and the turnovers. That's the first and foremost thing. That's going to be a necessity. But again, I feel like you're going to have to hit on some big plays. You're going to have to get some plays down the field. Fields is going to maybe have to break some big runs off, a pick 6 or something, a kick return for a touchdown, punt return for a touchdown. You definitely got to have those things in your favor, and they definitely have to be, as Eberflus would say, positive in the turnover category, or plus in the turnover category. So those things all have to take place, and they have to be effective. They got to run the ball. You have to run the football with both Fields and with your backs. And you do have to run the play action off that to get it down the field. And still, Fields is going to have to start to show some more growth in the progression aspect of it in as far as the processing things quickly, getting the ball out, all those things. He's got to be able to throw it in the middle of the field more. But you can say that there's schematic things with that and all that, and I get it. But at the same time, everybody's got to have accountability here, and everybody's got some blame, but things are starting to come together now. And if in this game we see good pass blocking, receivers getting open, all this stuff going on, and Fields is missing on throws, and that is going to be concerning to me. So, but I mean, at the same time, he is coming off a hand injury, so we're going to have to give him some credit if he misses, with some inaccuracies. But if he's not seeing stuff, he's not throwing the ball when he obviously should be. We can't expect him to just overnight start throwing with incredible anticipation. But if we are going to have to see some more in the pocket, getting rid of the football, quick passing game on top of the stuff that he's good at in this game and in the future, for him to stand a chance and for us to stand a chance this season winning some football games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yes, Cliff, Bears should run. Go ahead,
yes,
Tim.
100%. I agree, but we all want to talk about Fields over the next 7 games, but I'm going to talk about strictly right now in Detroit. And I was talking about this early in the show before we brought Mike in, but there's a few things that I think really play into the Bears' favor this week. Number one, like I was saying earlier, Justin Fields is back. I'm telling you, he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. He's going to come out there and he's going to want to perform big time. But another thing, this is a trap game for Detroit. It really is. This is a Bears team who the defense has been playing lights out. They're actually like number 3 in run defense in the NFL right now. They've been playing lights out. It's one of those things where, I think Montgomery has a little bit of extra bones for this game. He's going to want to come out there and really attack. But
I don't think that's being talked about enough.
I don't think it is either. But I also want to mention that I think the Bears defense is going to want to shut him down. Same reason.
Well, they are, but here's the thing. Let me piggyback off you real quick, Tim, because here's my issue. Here's what I think is the issue with all that. So first of all, I agree it is kind of a trap game for them, but Dan Campbell's aware of that too. And if you've seen his press conferences in the past couple of days, he's all over it. And he's making his team know that the Bears play hard. They don't give up. He even said in his press conference, which some of us don't always agree with this, he said they're close. Just like, Eberflus has been saying. So whether the Bears are close or not is debatable, but he is not, and I'm talking about Campbell, is not taking them lightly. And he's not going to let his players take the Bears lightly. This game it might be a trap game to some, but Detroit is not going to play like that. They're going to play hard. They're at home. The crowd is going to be in it. They're going to want to play hard. So, and to go back to your other point with Montgomery, yeah, the Bears defense is probably going to be a little fired up to play him. He's obviously going to be fired up to play against the Bears. I can't believe you let your division rival pay me more than you guys would. And the thing about the defense is there's some new pieces there. The guys that played with Montgomery last year that are probably not going to be the guys who will be tackling him this year. It'll be Edmonds if he plays, which it doesn't look like he's going to, but Sanborn, if he does, he was with him last year, so he knows, but Edwards wasn't. And if he knows anything about this guy, he better be on his A game as he's been for a lot of the season, because Montgomery's going to be running hard. That guy might have the strongest legs I have ever seen in my life, the way he runs through some tackles. He might not have a bunch of big gains all the time, but he don't lose yardage. That guy takes the ball and he gets after it. So the Bears better be ready to tackle him. And then they better be ready for that change of pace in Gibbs too. And as I've heard from some other people, some analysts and stuff, both on Twitter, I think Matt Bowen mentioned it too on that 670 interview I was talking about earlier. If the Bears really want to stand a chance on defense and in this football game, they got to get after Goff early. They got to disrupt him early, because if they let this dude get into a rhythm, they let him get going, he's going to destroy him. He's going to get going. And, it's like we can't have that happen in this game. Or if we let Jared Goff, of all people, beat us from the Lions, it's a real problem. So we have to be able to start there first, get going on him, and they got to stop the run as they have all season. But again, like I said, it ain't going to be easy in this game. They got 2 backs who run the football really well, and Montgomery's got extra motivation for this. Sanborn, if he plays, better be ready. And so better be Edwards and the rest of that defensive line. He's coming. Yeah,
and I'm going to mention what Cliff said here as well. He said Sanborn may be better than Edmonds for stopping Montgomery.
That maybe.
And yeah. I agree. I agree with that. But also at the same time, not having Edmonds leaves the middle of the field open, and they have a guy that's pretty good at wide receiver that likes to play in the middle of the field. So, and I'm talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that's another thing we're not talking about, brother on brother rivalry again here. Maybe we could see a little bit more with that with the St. Brown brothers. But I also want to mention, like, there's a couple things that were missing last year too that are not missing now that are here. And one big one as far as run stopping is Billings. We have Andrew Billings now, who's been one of the best run defenders in the NFL. And that's good because Montgomery likes to pound it up the middle. That's a good guy to have there up the middle. And we have Javon Dexter, like, who's also a big bodied guy. That could be a big thing to help. But I also want to talk, they've got Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a good punch with Montgomery, but I also, Montez Sweat's also here, and he wasn't before, and he's really good against the run too, and he's on the outside where Gibbs has his success. So there's some things here that could really play into big help for the Bears. And I also want to say, like I said, Fields playing with a chip on his shoulder. As the screen's showing right now, Khalil Herbert should be back. That should be a big help, a big positive there. As much as I don't like doing this, I'm going to do it. You're
going to make a prediction. Don't do that.
I think the Bears are going to get an upset, man.
Tim, don't ruin it.
I know. I just have a feeling. I really do. Like,
if you screw this up, Tim.
I just have this feeling, man. I don't know. They're playing well. Defense, or they're playing better as a team. Like, the defense is playing much better. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen. I just have a gut feeling. I just do. Now, but like I said, my mind is telling me otherwise. Like, there's no chance. But at the same time, I just have a feeling, man. I just do.
So let me mention a couple of things real quick. We just had on the screen that Khalil Herbert is going to be active. If you guys haven't heard, he's going to play. And that makes me really happy because, number one, we're not sure if Foreman's going to play or not yet because he's officially questionable. I think he hurt his ankle, if I'm not mistaken. He had some swelling in his ankle. So we're not sure if he's going to play yet. But if he does, I'm pretty excited for that too because I want to see them play together. Herbert was playing really good football before he got hurt. And if you guys don't remember, he was playing really good football last year. And if you guys don't remember before that, when he was a rookie, he was turning heads as a 6th-round draft pick or 7th-round draft pick. I can't remember for sure. Playing really good football as a rookie.
There's something I want to mention about that really quick, too. I want to mention Khalil Herbert because a lot of people aren't real high on Khalil Herbert. And we were talking, everybody's talking about Deontay Foreman and how he's been in Herbert's stead. And even in training camp going into the season, people were talking about how this it's going to be running back by committee. Roschon's eventually everybody said Roschon Johnson was going to take over the running back spot over Khalil Herbert. And man, did he shut everybody up quick within a few games. Like, you saw what he can do. This guy, I feel like his game has evolved so much from last year too. He's a much better in pass pro. He's better catching the ball out of the backfield. And I feel like he's running even better, a little harder than he has in the past. He's always been that finesse guy. He finds holes and explodes. Well, now we're starting to see a little bit of him running through some guys. But I mean, I like where he is. I feel like he's really getting better, and we'll see. But I think he's going to have a big game too. We'll see, especially with Tevin back.
Yeah, I'm excited for that to see Tevin. That was another thing that Aldo just posted on the screen is that Nate Davis is going to be back, and he's going back to right guard if you guys haven't heard, and Jenkins is moving back to the left side. So. And if you guys don't remember, before Davis got hurt, they were starting to form a nice little alliance on the right side with those two. I know we've liked what Jenkins and Wright have done, especially in the run game, but Nate Davis and Darnell Wright were playing really, really well right next to each other before Davis got hurt. So I am excited to see that tandem get going again. And I'm also excited to see if Tevin and Braxton can get going together on the left side also because, obviously Jenkins is a pretty good run blocker, a really good run blocker, and Braxton's a pretty good run blocker. So we need to get better running the ball to that side. So seeing them together, I am excited to see if they can run better that way. But there are two matchups that I wanted to mention in this game that are going to be kind of important to me. The first one is obviously Montez Sweat on Penei Sewell. I think we're going to see that a lot. Mm-hmm. And Penei Sewell is one of the better, if not the best, right tackles in the game right now. And
don't disrespect Darnell Wright like that now.
Darnell Wright he's a very intriguing and promising rookie who is still growing and has all-pro potential. He is not there yet. Penei Sewell, might be all pro right now. That man is a monster. So, seeing Montez Sweat on him is going to be interesting to me, seeing if Sweat can get his per se. I want to see if he can disrupt him in the pass rush, because Sewell has not given up anything lately. I think he's given up 1 sack all season. And so whether they can stop him, whether they can get past him in the pass rush, Sweat that is, and whether he can get some stops in the run game, because Sewell's very good in the run game too, that's going to be interesting to me. And then on the other side of that coin is the Darnell Wright versus Aiden Hutchinson matchup, which I think we're going to see a lot of that too. Now, what's going to upset me in this game, which now I like Wright, and I think he's very capable of a lot of things. I think he's going to be a very, very good player. But if Getsy matches him up one-on-one with Aiden Hutchinson consistently throughout this game and does not at least chip him or give him some kind of help in this game, first of all, Hutchinson's going to get home a ton and disrupt the passing game. And number 2, it's going to be a long day for Darnell Wright. So please do not do that to this kid. I am excited to see what he can do against Hutchinson, but we cannot put him one-on-one all game long. Just don't do that, please.
I would say that I think that it's going to be a game where we really see Cole Kmet's impact, but not in the pass game, or as far as like catching the ball. I think he's going to have a big impact in the run blocking and chip game. I think that's where he's really going to see success this week. But, it's every few games we see that. It depends on matchup. And I think that this would be a good game for him to do that. That's his strength. Like, I know he's been good catching the ball, but, man, Cole Kmet is so good in run blocking and pass pro for a tight end. Like, there's a reason that he got his extension. So, and I don't know. Aiden Hutchinson worries me a little bit, especially if he's going to be on that side of the line. Especially with Nate Davis coming back.
Worries me over Braxton Jones too, for that matter.
Yeah, it's
maybe
true.
More so.
It's true. I agree. 100%.
That guy just worries me. Period. He's a problem. Aiden Hutchinson is just a problem, guys. And yes, I agree, Cliff. This is going to be a good game to play Mercedes. And here's why. Because obviously he's a really good blocker, but they're going to need to run the football in this game. If they're just going to let Aiden Hutchinson tee off because they get behind, that's going to be a serious problem. You cannot get behind because you didn't run the football enough, and then you're forcing Fields to throw the ball, and then, Hutchinson, like I said, is going to be teeing off, and then you're going to have people in the next several weeks after the game going, oh, Fields is terrible, he can't do it, because he's forced to throw the ball 100 times, because they didn't run the ball, they got too far behind, and we had and got killed. So I do want to see them run the football. I do want to see a lot of Mercedes Lewis in this football game, and I want to see them pound it. I don't care what side they pound it to, as long as they have success doing it, because now Jenkins is on the left, and as long as he's comfortable enough over there and we're seeing success over there, I'm okay with them doing that. But I do want to see them run the ball. They are finally starting to incorporate some more toss into the game, I've noticed, which we hadn't seen a lot of early on, and I love when they do that, because I feel like they get outside, and our running backs do a really good job getting outside, get down the sideline, or even making cuts up and through the seam. It's to me, we got to be able to do that more. We really do. We got to commit to the run. We got to have success running it in this game to have a chance. And I think we can run the football in this game. I really do. I think we can run the ball on anybody, if you want my opinion. They just got to commit to it. They got to commit to it, and they got to give their guys a chance to do it, because they will do it effectively. Herbert's shown an ability to run the football effectively against anybody. Foreman, for the last several weeks now, has run the football very effectively. They got to be able to throw the football too. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. That's going to be a part of this game. So run the ball, and definitely we're going to have to see some success in the passing game. So our guys better be ready there, because there are some, to me, I feel like we can beat some of these guys on the back end from Detroit. Now, Brian Branch is pretty impressive, but I think our receivers, I think if we give them a chance to get the ball downfield, we can make it happen. And Aldo says in the chat, run the goddamn ball, sign the Willis twins. Yes. If we can get that out to Luke Getsy, if anybody has a connection to him, please send that. Run the ball. Run the ball.
Yeah. And, just to go along with that, the Lions defense has given up a lot of points over the last few weeks. And they've shown a little bit of weakness there, that defense can be exploited. And I will tell you, that starts with that running game. Like you say, like if we can get the running game going, It's going to open up play action. And what is Justin Fields best at? Deep passes down the field, deep ball accuracy, take your shots downfield. That's how we score in this game, is running the football, opening up play action, and getting balls down the field. That's how we're going to see. If we can get downfield throws in and start hitting on some of those deep shots, this could be a ball game. This could be a real game here. I mean, it's they have to stick to what they're good at, and it's going to depend. Is Getsy going to call the game he wants to call, or is he going to call a game to this player's strengths and a game plan that will be good against Detroit?
I will say one thing. I will say one thing about Getsy. Now, early on in the season, I think everybody would have agreed that the play calling was, to be nice, was a mess in some instances. And that's to be nice. So, but that being said, in the last couple of weeks, I feel like we have started to see more of a game plan suited to the personnel. Now, one thing I will say, we've seen him doing a lot more like the bootleg rollout thing with Bagent in this offense last few weeks. Now, if he gets away from that with Justin Fields, who has that as one of his strengths, that is going to bother me because they've been having some success with that. So, again, if he – look, I mean, he has – to give him some credit, Getsy has been a little more what's the word I'm looking for? They've just been better suited for his personnel the last couple of weeks with his play calling and game planning. But again, like I said, we're going to have some explosive plays. We're going to have to get the ball down the field. And Fields can do that. So they got to give their guys chances. So, I mean,
I agree. I agree. And I would say that this is also a really good opportunity to have a bounce back game for DJ Moore. We didn't see a whole lot of DJ as far as explosive plays, and really he didn't get the ball a whole lot when Tyson Bagent was starting. And I think this would be a really good bounce back game. Like, hey, your guy Justin's back. Hey, here we go. Let's do this thing, DJ. Let's really torch him here. I think it could be a really good game for him. He's going to get his targets if Justin throws the ball. Like if we see the ball getting thrown a lot, DJ's going to get his targets, and DJ will have an impact in this game. I really feel that way. I think he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder too.
Well, one area of improvement that I want to see from Fields in this game in particular is his accuracy throwing those perimeter receiver screens and just the blocking plays to the perimeter, because or even in just the short passing game, because I'll tell you what, and we already knew this before the season, but it's been very, very obvious as of late. You get DJ Moore the ball in his hands, the guy he's going to make guys miss. He's going to get yards after the catch. It's a given. He is going to get something after the catch. It just always happens. So if Fields can be a little bit more accurate with those throws to the perimeter, with those throws, gets a little bit more in stride with some of that stuff to Moore, give him more of a chance to get the ball out in front and get going instead of reaching back and then getting moving. Let his momentum take him with him. And then I feel like he's going to get a little bit bigger gains, and the offense will have, instead of, from going from first and 10 to 2nd and 8, now it's 1st and 10 to 2nd and 4, because we got 6 yards on that short pass instead of Moore having to come backwards. And now he goes to try to get extra yardage, and it's harder. So to me, I do want to see a little bit of that. Yeah.
Well, even on those little sideline throws where you see DJ get the ball on the sideline, defender comes up and goes to tackle. And I think he surprises defenders because they think they've either gotten him out of bounds or they've tackled him. And here he goes 10 yards down the field. He's escaped. He has that ability. It's not that he's necessarily excellent at running through guys and breaking tackles. He just has a finesse about the way he plays the receiver position and finds ways to get away and get extra yards. He is strong. He's a strong guy. But like I said, I don't think he's just trucking guys over. I think he's just, once he catches the ball, he's good at running through.
He runs through
tackles. Yeah.
He's trucking him. He just runs through tackles. Guys try to arm tackle him and find out real quick that he's way too strong. And he is deceptively fast and deceptively quick. He makes moves in the open field and gets through guys and around guys. So, like I said, I mean, guys try to arm tackle him, and they're not going to be able to. And one thing, this is not Bears related, but going back to the game last night, because you guys are talking about it in the chat, Cincinnati and Baltimore last night. First of all, Baltimore smoked Cincinnati, if you guys didn't see. But part of the reason why is because Joe Burrow hurt his wrist. He tore a ligament, and he's out for the season now, which sucks for me because Jamar Chase is on my fantasy team, and he's been my keeper for 3 years now. So one of my keepers. So that sucks for me. But Baltimore lost Mark Andrews last night too, as you guys said in the chats also. So he's also out for the year. That sucks for Baltimore. But, you know, that in that game and that division now, people at the beginning of the season, I remember people talking about how Pittsburgh was like going to be the worst team in that division and finish with a losing record and all that. Right now, they're what are they, 6-3 or something like that? 6-3 or 5-3? I can't remember exactly, but they're, you know, right there in the thick of it, you know, and they're probably going to make the playoffs at this point. Now,
I'm telling you, I will rip out what little bit of hair I have left if, for whatever reason, Pickett gets benched or gets hurt and Mitchell Trubisky leads them to a playoff run. I will
that
lose.
Will never happen.
I will lose my mind. But
one thing I want, we got to get going here pretty quick, but one thing I want to say real fast, because I know we've had this talk about, you know, the coaching controversy, whether or not Eberflus is going to stick around and make it or whatever, if they're going to fire him. But I have heard through the grapevine some rumblings that the Steelers could potentially move on from Tomlin. Number one, I don't think that's going to happen because all he does is win. The guy has literally never had a losing season in the NFL. Think about that for a second. Think about how long Mike Tomlin has been in Pittsburgh. He has never had a losing season, ever. So let me just say this. If the Steelers were to somehow, for some reason, move on from Mike Tomlin, I don't care how much you like Matt Eberflus. You go get Mike Tomlin right now. And I mean right now. He would instantly change the tune in that building. He would change the culture. He would change the win. He'd get them to play winning football. I promise you they wouldn't have as many penalties and turnovers. It would be, I mean, just a totally different setting. I'd be ecstatic to see that happen. But again, that's not here nor there. I'm just saying that's something that I heard. And yeah, that would be great to see. That'd be intriguing for sure.
Yeah. So, hey, real quick, let's see if anybody's got any questions. We're going to close here in a few minutes, but if anybody's got any questions, we'll answer those questions and then move on to there will be another barroom show coming on. So
Almost says Mike Tomlin, here's the key to the city, the First National Bank and the Willis Tower. Really though.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, seriously, I mean, if you had the opportunity to bring Mike Tomlin in, like,
who would not take him?
How could
would any Bears fan not take Mike Tomlin right now if they could? Anybody in the chat, would you not take Mike Tomlin?
You'd be lying. The only way you would say no is if you hate the Steelers, if you're a Ravens fan or a Bengals fan or a Browns fan.
Anybody who's an objective football fan who enjoys good football would take Mike Tomlin in a heartbeat.
Yes.
So what are the thoughts on Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is a question that Aldo's asking. And so we kind of talked about this last week a little bit. And I'll just kind of give my thoughts first, and then Tim, you can kind of say something if you want. But my first thing is the guy, so he shows nice creativity in his play calling. He caters to his players' strengths, which is a big deal to me, the way he does that, and gets guys to play to their ability level. The most impressive thing to me is what he has done with his personnel. Look at Jared Goff. He was a cast-off in LA. They were ready to move on from him. They were done with him. They wanted Stafford. And look what he has done with the guy. He's turned him from a below-level replacement player into an above-average starter. So to me, that in and of itself, let's say the Bears were to hang on to Fields because of the things he showed at the end of the season. What if, or even, any quarterback they brought in, if they brought in Ben Johnson as a head coach, I feel like he would find a way to cater an offense around his personnel to get winning football. And actually, the best part about the whole thing is he's not afraid to play to your strengths and not get cute like Getsy does. He will go meat and potatoes, run the football style football, or whatever the case may be, just pound it on you. The Bears can do that and should a lot of times. But instead, we run like shotgun on 4th and 1 at the goal line and get stuffed, which is like insane to me. So that would be what I'd say. And then there are some more questions, Tim. So if you want to hurry up.
I would just say one thing, and then I want to get to Cliff's question. All I would say is, obviously, I would love to have Ben Johnson, and I would just say Detroit's not asking the questions about Johnson that we're asking about Luke Getsy, and leave it at that. They're not having to ask the questions about their coordinator. Cliff also asked a question here. Do you guys believe Justin's thumb will hold up for 4 quarters, or will we see Bagent? And I'll just answer that by saying I am 100% certain that Bears coaches are preaching in Justin's ear like, stay in the pocket, don't try to roll out, don't try to get away unless the pocket collapses. Don't be afraid to take a sack and protect yourself. But the way Justin plays,
they're going to tell him to get rid of it and to not take sacks.
Right.
They're going to want him to not fall in his hand.
I'm saying if the pressure is already on him, I'm sure they're telling him to protect himself and just take.
They're going to tell him not to be. In my opinion, they're going to tell him don't be afraid to take the check down in this game because we don't want you to take the extra time throwing the football, getting sacked, and hurting your hand. So I do think he can hold up for 4 quarters if he's able to avoid sacks. That's in my opinion. So Cliff, if he can avoid sacks, which is been an issue for Fields in the past, then I think it can hold up. Just throwing the football, I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think if he's taking hits onto his hand, then we could have a problem. But I think as far as throwing the football, no, we won't have an issue there.
Well,
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I just wanted to highlight really quick one comment before we get to that question. It was Torian had said, Peter King said Belichick has the Bears on his list. And I would say really quick, I think that Belichick would definitely be a guy that the McCaskies would like because of the way he is with the media, and he doesn't really give away anything. He'd fit right in as far as that goes. They don't have to give him the PR speech. I just don't know if he's a candidate for any.
I would still be surprised if he actually moved on from New England. If they actually moved on from Belichick, that would kind of surprise me. If he wanted to move on, then I could see it. But if the Bears do fire Eberflus and Belichick's available, he'd be a candidate. I would be shocked if he wasn't. But I don't know. I'd be shocked if he actually left New England. We're running out of time, so let's get to this last question here before we go. Kevin wants to know: do you re-sign Tevin Jenkins? At this point, if you had a gun to my head and you told me you either have to re-sign Tevin Jenkins right now or you move on from him forever, I would re-sign him. But at this point, I think you have to wait and kind of see a little bit more and see how much he develops, because I think he can be an all-pro, potentially the best player at his position, best left guard in the league. I believe he has that kind of potential. And if you let him continue, if he stays healthy, which is a big part, if he stays healthy and he continues to improve and progress, and they've mentioned that they like the way he's progressed as far as being a pro and coming along with his development in that phase. He's eating better, nutrition and all those kinds of things. He's mentioned, I don't know if you guys have heard, he likes the Wendy's Baconator and some other things from Wendy's, and now he doesn't eat that so much. It's just like a cheat day thing for him. So I think if he can stay healthy, if he can stay healthy and if he can continue to improve and show dominance in the run game and be a better pass protector, which he has shown a lot of improvement there too. But if he can be a better pass protector and continue to show dominance in the run game, yes, they extend him. And he's going to be a very, very highly paid guard at that rate if he continues on at this path.
Well, I'll give my opinion on it in a second. But before I do that, I just want to say I want to give Wendy's a shout out for the win. That biggie bag is a pretty great thing that they've got over there. The $6 biggie bag. But anyway, I like Wendy's a lot. So congrats to Tevin for really talking about his love for the Baconator. But anyway, just to continue on with that point, I would say if Tevin finishes out the year healthy, the rest of this season going into next, they re-sign him. I think they do. I think they re-sign him in the offseason. It's hard to find.
He got enough needs, and he's a good football player, a really good one.
Yep, and I don't think he'd ask for a whole lot of money. I think he'd probably take a little bit of a hometown discount. He said multiple times on the record he loves Chicago. He's got, his brother was on. I was watching the Making Monsters from Taylor Dahl earlier in the week, and his brother was on there, and he talked about how he really likes Chicago, and he doesn't want to leave, and he would definitely see him staying. So I think that he does, as long as he finishes out the year healthy. That's my honest opinion.
All right. I think so too. So, well, like I said, barring health and whatnot. So anyways, guys, we got to get going. So before we close out here, keys to the win tomorrow. We got to be able to get after Goff early and often. We got to be able to run the football. We got to get some explosive plays, hopefully passes down the field, and we got to limit turnovers and penalties, as we talked about early. So bear down. Let's get a win this Sunday, hopefully. Because, man, would that be a statement win to take out the Lions, guys?
Yep. And the Willises say it, just like Aldo said, run the ball. Run the ball.
Run it.
Yep. bear down. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy this game this weekend.
Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next week. Or no.